Hello, in this session we want to talk about sunscreens. A lot of people have misunderstandings about sunscreens. What's really sad is that they can be the most helpful in one sense and the most dangerous in others. For example, vitamin D comes from the sun, and we don't want to block it all out because it's what really our body needs. It's actually something that increases our energy, gives us a very positive outlook on life, vitamin D, and it helps many of our organs. So if we block it entirely, we're not doing our body any favor. So you want to do it in the right mode and in the right amount. We tend to use more and more sunscreens because there's been so much advertising and so much marketing to tell us how to protect our body and stop skin cancer and stop all those bad things from aging that occurs from the sun. First of all, let us understand. The sun puts out ultraviolet rays, that's UV, and they put out three types. The sun puts out three types. A, and it comes in a short wave and a long wave. Puts out B, which comes in a single wave, and it comes and puts out UVC, which comes in a single wave. Well, UVC usually never reaches the Earth because it's stopped in the ionosphere. UVA and UVB does hit us and gets down onto the Earth. When we put a sunscreen on, we buy one that has an SPF rating, and sometimes it's 30 and 50, and now we've seen ratings go as high as 100. It's only in the United States that you can go above 50. In Europe, in Australia, and most parts of the world, they have outlawed any sunscreens above 50. It's not allowed, mainly because they're ineffective. And when you give a rating above 50, it's an ineffective amount because once you're at 50, you are protecting yourself from the sun at 99.7. And if you go to 100, maybe you get to a 99.8% if you're lucky, but unfortunately you add a lot more toxicity to get that 1/10 of 1%. So you only want to buy something that has an SPF 30 to 50. That's about the maximum that you want to put on your body. Another thing that comes into play, again in the United States, this is where Europe and Australia is ahead of us. In the United States, since there's no really FDA controls in the way that there should be about the number SPF, we can put on a rating in the United States SPF 30, for example, and then we can put on the same jar that will protect us from UVA and UVB. It's a blend. However, the SPF number only refers to UVB. In other words, if I have a UVB protection factor of 30, SPF 30, which means I can stay out in the sun 30 times longer than normal and still not have any more effect on my body damage, then that's where the 30 comes from. It's blocking the skin from the UV rays. However, if I only have a UVA rating of 1 protection, but a UVB rating of 30, I can put on the jar SPF 30 UVA UVB blend. And that gives you this false sense of security that you're protecting yourself from both ultraviolet rays. Think of UVB as being burned. That's what gives the color to your skin. Think of UVA as aging. That's the damaging ultraviolet ray. That's what gives you cancer. That's what gives you melanoma. That's what does damage to the skin and gives you the wrinkles. So to go out in the sun and go with a sunscreen that has an SPF 30 rating and stop the burning so you stay out there longer because your skin doesn't change color, you think you're protected, but in the meantime you're getting almost a total dose of UVA, which is doing the damage to your skin. So be cautious and be wary of what you are doing. And no matter what sunscreen you put on, no matter who provides it to you, don't stay out in the sun too long because the UVA rays are probably getting to your body. Now, there are two types of sunscreens that are available to you. Understand that melanoma is one of the fastest growing cancers in the United States at a rate of almost 4% increase per year. Yet people are lathering on more and more sunscreens. There's a reason for that, one of which we just stated, the fact that the UVB rating is what protects you from burn and you stay out longer, and the UVA is what gives you melanoma, and most sunscreens, except one type, does not give you hardly any protection against UVA. The second problem is the type of sunscreen you use. Most sunscreens use chemicals, oxybenzone, avobenzone, homosalate. Look on the jar of sunscreen that you're using, and if you see a long name, especially beginning with oxy, or HOMA, then you are using chemicals. The problem with chemicals is that within a matter of 25 to 30 minutes, the chemicals break down into various elements, because chemicals are compounds made up of different elements. And unfortunately, in virtually all chemicals, one of the elements is oxygen. And once the sun, the UVA rays, comes in and hits that chemical and breaks it up, then you end up with having free oxygen in your skin, and free oxygen is what damages cells. So actually, by putting on a sunscreen, especially with a chemical, you are actually opening yourself up to more attack and the more possibility of cancerous or toxin growths. So you want to stay away from any sunscreens that have chemicals. One of the most popular chemicals used in sunscreens in the United States is avobenzone. Unfortunately, that type of chemical is actually more toxic than the rest. Oxybenzone also fits into that category. You want to stay away from chemicals. So the one thing you can use is a sunscreen that has minerals, and that includes titanium dioxide or zinc oxide. Titanium oxide is pretty good, dioxide, I'm sorry, is pretty good, but it's not as effective as zinc oxide. So the best sunscreen you can put on your body, which has the least, if almost zero toxicity, is a sunscreen made up of zinc oxide. Zinc oxide will protect you against UVA and UVB. In fact, if you go back in time and you look at some of the old photos of people on the beach, they used to, especially the people that are supposed to protect you out on the beach, they would put on sunscreen on their nose, and it would be a white, pasty sunscreen. Well, that's zinc oxide. Most people don't like to use that because who wants to walk around with a white face? However, there are sunscreens now with zinc oxide in it that will give you the same protection, but without that heavy white paste. What you want to make sure is when you buy zinc oxide, look on the jar. Make sure it says non-nano on the jar. Because one of the ways that people have made sunscreen so that the zinc oxide isn't as pasty is by breaking it down into nano-sized particles, which just means making it into very small particles. The problem with that is when you get a particle too small and the sun hits it, it can heat it up, boil it, and make the zinc separate from the oxygen, and you end up with free oxygen. If you get non-nano zinc oxide, it's a much larger molecule and doesn't break down under the sun except after long periods of time. So if you want to buy a sunscreen, get zinc oxide, non-nano, no chemicals, make sure there are no preservatives like BHT in it, and get that on your skin. And by the same token, even with that, don't stay in the sun for hours upon hours. Stay in the sun for an hour, 2 hours. I don't care what the SPF rating is. Do not stay in too long, because eventually whatever you put on your body will break down. You will end up with free oxygen. You will get the UVA rays coming into your body, and it will give you damage to your skin, and in the worst case, giving you cancer. Remember, in the United States, we do not give the protection to people on sunscreens the way we should under the FDA rulings, because they're too loose. They're much tighter overseas. But whatever it may be, wherever you are, just make sure, buying a sunscreen, no chemicals. Buying a sunscreen, look at the ingredients. If you see BHT, which is a preservative used in about 80% of the sunscreens, that is directly linked to cancer, don't use it. Buy a sunscreen that's zinc oxide, non-nano, so it's large particles, doesn't break down, and gives you the full protection against both UVA and UVB. SPF 30 is more than enough. SPF 50 should be a limit, and you will now be in the safest mode you can be. At Replenish Plus, we do manufacture a sunscreen. We're not the only ones in the world that make non-nano zinc oxide, but we're pretty proud of our brand in the sense that we're the only ones that make a zinc oxide that is all food-grade ingredients, no toxic ingredients in it whatsoever, no chemicals whatsoever, and on top of it, it took us years, it's actually a patented design, but to figure out how to make it so that the pH level is in the alkaline state, which for a sunscreen is where you want to be, to give you, again, more protection against cancer. Cancer does not thrive well in alkaline. Most sunscreens, 90 to 95% of them, have a pH value in the 5 range, the acidic side, and unfortunately cancer thrives in acidity and dies in alkaline. So we have the only alkaline, food grade, sunscreen, non-nano, zinc oxide, that gives you a protection at about 35 to 38, and we're very proud of this product. We hope you'll use ours, obviously, but as a protection to yourself, don't use anything that's chemicals, that has preservatives that are harmful, and that are going to give you more chance of getting cancer than not by using it. And that's where we hope you will follow the rules from here on out. Thank you.
Very good, Robert.